and welcome to Tayo Mini Reads, Reviews, Discusses, Monologues about everything and anything, and that's on period. Hi guys, and welcome to my channel. So, should I say happy holidays to everyone who's celebrating Christmas, New Year? I have been enjoying the time off. I mean, I still had to work for a bit, but it was good to get some downtime, and I got downtime in, work, in my side hustle, which is my YouTube videos. I also took some time off from reading. Well, I wasn't reading as much. And I think it was a great way to reset and get ready for the new year, which Happy New Year, everyone. So, but anyways, I wanted to get into the few books that I did read in November and December. If you are new to this channel, I typically would do a wrap up every month of the books that I read. And so towards the end of last year, like I said, I took a little break, a very little break. It wasn't something that was, I had videos coming out anyways, but I took a little break from reading as intensely. And so I didn't actually do a wrap up for November and December. Don't know if anyone noticed, but I had plans to kind of, release it in the first month of 2026, and so I'm doing exactly that. So I want to get into the books that I finished in November and December of 2025. I think I read about 6 books, so it was like 3 per month. I really made sure to not be pressured, and I kind of just wanted to clean up and finish up all the books that I had kind of set out to read from the beginning of 2025. So, without talking too much and without yapping your heads off, let's get into the books that I finished in November and December of 2025. So, the first one would be Alchemised by Sen Lin Yu. So, this book was one of the books that I was eagerly anticipating its release in 2025. It did come out, I want to say maybe October of 2025. And before it came out, right, I was really skeptical because I didn't know exactly what I was going into. I had a very vague idea. And I was actually a little scared going into it because there was a lot of hype when this book came out, and there were also a lot of trigger words. I mean, none of them apply to me, but I'm always really cautious about reading books that are, maybe too extreme in some regards. I'm going to give you a brief synopsis, going to tell you the trigger warnings. Actually, I'll do the trigger warnings first and then the synopsis and I guess what I thought about the book. So, I'm going to be reading off my notes here. The trigger warnings are wartime violence, you have abuse, you have suicidal ideation, self-harm, you have human experimentations going on, you have sexual assault, you have, and everything that, doing stuff without consent, pretty much. You have cannibalism, which was, I haven't seen that in a minute, and necrophilia. So, a lot of dark things going on. And so, if you picked it up and looked at the trigger warnings, I mean, you might be a little triggered because it's like, what the heck is going on with this book? But I digress. So, basically, we follow Helena, who is a part of the resistance, right? This is a wartime, it's set against a wartime background. We don't really see a lot of what happened before. We're just in the future where we see that the war has actually been won. And Helena was part of the losers, right? The people who lost the war. But then we meet her and we realize that she doesn't have her memories. Now, this book or this world is kind of set against the backdrop. The magic system is really like necromancy. They have something called vivimancy. They have different types of mancies. But basically, you know what necromancy is. You're dealing, reanimating dead bodies. Vivimancy, I think, has to do with like manipulating the brain or healing the brain or some kind of, thing that has to do with the body. So, there's this backdrop of this war. We meet this lady. She has lost her memories, and so her captors are like, we need to send her off to this dude called the High Reeve because we need to really get her memories, and it looks like someone manipulated her memories, and we need to try and see if there's a way we can retrieve them because she might have some important information, as she was one of the top or high standing member of the resistance. Basically, that's it. So Helena is then sent off to, the High Reeve, and then we get the format is we started in the present, and then we kind of go all the way to the past, leading up to present events, and then we get like the continuation. So a huge chunk of the book is about the past and tells you, what Helena was actually during the war, and how they came to actually lose the war. So that's basically it without giving too much spoilers. I really thought that I wouldn't like this book, but to be quite honest, I did like it. There are a couple of things that I would say about this book is you need to read it with caution. The trigger warnings are no joke. I mean, for real, everything I mentioned actually goes on in the book and even more. And also, there is a kind of I don't want to say love story, but there is kind of like a love story basically. But it's so it's so complex. It's so layered. It's so convoluted that I don't really think that people should aspire to have that kind of love. Like, this is the love story that people should not aspire to have. That's basically what I'm gonna say. So it was a good read. I really enjoyed it. It's a huge chunky book, but it actually was worth the read. Honestly, I wouldn't probably may I don't know if I'll read it again, but it was a really good one. I enjoyed it. It also has this backdrop of being like a Harry Potter fanfic. So that's also, if you like that, that world, you can pick it up because that's basically, the start of the book, or the origin of the book is what I was trying to say. So the next one that I read. Now this one, I'm not going to go too in depth because one, spoilers, and two, I have a spoilery video coming out sometime next month. So I will go into maybe a little more details in there, but this will be Strength of the Few by James Islington. I think I also read The Will of the Many. I don't have it up. I'll put it up somewhere. But I did reread The Will of the Many, and then I went on to read The Strength of the Few right after. Now, when I had read Will of the Many whenever it came out, it was a 5-star read for me. And I actually still kind of, I don't know if I stand by it, but I think I do. Maybe it's not a 5-star read, but it's a really good book, The Will of the Many. This one, on the other hand, like I said, I reread The Will of the Many, and I came out with some, I guess, a different perception of what I had of Viz from my original first time that I read the book. Viz in my second reread now came off as someone who had zero agency. Apart from that, I felt like he just kind of went with the flow a lot and did not really push back against the people who were, manipulating him and trying to make him do stuff that he didn't want. I think he just kind of went with it. And so, on the reread, I was like, come on, you can do better. So then we get to Hierarchy Book 2, and it's a whole mess, honestly. We do get some answers, but that's, I think, what was the worst part of the book was there were a lot of burning questions from Book 1, but then seeing them finally answered in Book 2, and you're just like, wow, that's it. Like, it was so underwhelming. Like, stuff that was so built up in the first book that you think like, oh my God, once this gets out, like, it's going to be bad. It's going to have a huge effect. But sadly, when we get here, it's just a review, and it's like, oh, back to business. It was so underwhelming. I did not like it at all. And then there's a lot of convoluted stuff going on because and I'm not spoiling this, but it's here that he says, Viz is now actually three, right? He has a different version in Obithium, Lucium, and Res. So basically what happens is throughout this book, you are skipping from each world. You're skipping to Viz on Res, Viz on Lucem, Viz on Obithium, and sometimes you don't even really get warnings that that's where you're at. I think it's really confusing. I know, like, yeah, you can just, yeah, he doesn't really have anything in the front to kind of say, oh, we're now in Res. So you kind of have to read, to be like, oh, okay, now we're with Viz, the res vis, or the obithium vis, or the you know lucium vis. So I think it was a bit convoluted unnecessarily, right? You could have just put something at the top so we know, right? So yeah, that that's strike two, because the first one was a lot of secrets or stuff that I thought was going to be explosive. Once they were reviewed in book two, it was just underwhelming. Two was the world jumping, where we had to then get to know three different viz in three different worlds with three different cultures. It was a bit overwhelming. So I don't know. And then the last thing that I did not like was, again, we are left with a lot of unanswered questions, and it seems like there is a conspiracy going on, right? And someone on Res is actually manipulating stuff. But here's my thing. I really don't like it when authors do this, is you bring like a unknown villain into the story like three books after, like unknown, like someone just randomly. And Brandon Sanderson actually did this when he wrote Stormlight Archive 5, where for the whole, from the book one, well, not book one, but from like maybe book two to book three or whatever, whenever they got the deal with Odium, we knew there was going to be a champion, right? And so the person he set up to be Odium's champion was just not, like, it was so, I felt like I was duped with that storyline. So I have a strong feeling that that's probably what's going to happen here, is that when we do find out who's the bad guy in Res, it's someone I think, but then again, I'm like, how could it be? So I don't know. And I really would hate if he just brings like a random person that we've not even heard about and be like, oh yeah, here's your bad guy. Really? So needless to that, well, I say all this to say that Strand of the Few was really not, it was not my best read. As much as I anticipated this book, I really didn't like it. Maybe I will reread it again, but that's exactly the reason why I read The Will of the Many first before reading this, because I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing out on anything. And honestly, it just didn't do it for me. So, like I said, I have a whole detailed review coming out. So, I have some spoiler thoughts in there, and fresher a fresher take on the books. But will I read the third book? I will, because I definitely want to know how this whole world and this whole story will end. So there's that. Okay, so the next book that I read I finished, was Cursed Daughters by Oyinkan Braithwaite. Again, so the three books that I just finished the two books I just talked about and this one were books that were all anticipated reads, and that's why I knew I needed to just push and finish them in 2025, including the next one actually. So all books were books that I had anticipated coming out in 2025. So I was super excited that they came out, and Cursed Daughter will be one of them. Oyinkan Braithwaite wrote My Sister the Serial Killer. She's a Nigerian, she's of Nigerian, descent. And this book is basically about a family story where it's like a family, matriloquial or matricial family, whatever you call a family of mainly women, right? And we're following multiple POVs of at least 3 women. We're following Ebon, Monife, and Eni. So these 3 women are connected because Ebon and Eni are cousins, and Monife is the daughter of Ebon. Now, the themes in this book, they are, again, if you are from Nigeria, I grew up in Lagos, so this book was really right up my alley because it's basically stuff that I grew up hearing and knowing about. So I'm just going to give you a couple themes here. We have reincarnation, Mami Wata. We have family curses. We have superstition, really strong superstition. We have witchcraft, mamalawo, that's babalawo, but like a mamalawo. And then we have people using jazz. If you know what jazz is, you know what jazz is. So you can see it's very different from like your typical read. I think this is more closer to, the real culture in Africa. Well, I wouldn't speak for the whole of Africa, but I would speak for Nigeria. Is, there are people that really do believe in this stuff right now. So I think for that reason, this book was a really good hit for me because it really drilled down into, curses and superstitions and familial, relationships, and how, these kinds of stories are passed down to generations. And to some degree, you're not even sure how much power you're given to the superstition just because of your belief, right? Because you could disbelieve, but these people chose not to. So, like I said, we follow these 3 women who they are aware that their family is cursed, right? And we have Ebon and Eni, who I think Eni doesn't believe. Eni believes, and Ebon did not believe the curse. But then I think once we start the book, we realize that Eni is passed. And on the day that she passes, Ebon, who was pregnant, actually has her baby. And when her baby is born, she's like she's like the plain image, honestly, of her cousin who just passed. So that's where the reincarnation comes in. And so we kind of then get flashbacks throughout the books of Eni's life and Ebon's life leading up to current events. So I think the writing was really good. Another thing that worked for me was the short story version, or the short story style. In the novel, basically each chapter was probably like 2 or 3 pages and they were done, and you would move to the next character's POV. So I really liked that because it made the book go faster. I guess there were also a couple of plot twists, which you could see coming from a mile away, but there was one that I actually was like, I gasped. I was like, what? So I think it was a really good book. What else? So at the end, you kind of get this whole kind of thing where the author kind of gives you a glimpse to say that, oh, the family curse is now lifted, and this is due to Eni actually fighting the spirit or whatever. But it was like really soft magic realism. You get it or you don't get it. So if you like magic realism, if you like family generational stories, this is a really good one. And if you believe or you like superstitions, this is a really good one. I enjoyed it. For something so little, it was really packed and it went by real fast. So this was a great entry for me. The next one that I read, and that, like I said, was also one of my anticipated reads for 2025, was Tailored Realities by Brandon Sanderson. Now, I don't like short stories. That's not a form of writing that appeals to me, but I'm realizing that maybe it's not that bad, right? I have read a couple of books that are short stories, but I don't really tend to go into short stories. But Brandon Sanderson releases stuff I'm buying. So this is basically a couple of 10 short stories. It's a collection of flash fiction. You have black noir, investigative, and science fiction stories. Actually, the shortest book here was maybe like 500 words, or maybe something like that. So it's, there were some really longer stories and there were some really really short stories. So I'm just gonna go by ranking, and I'm just gonna do like a one word for each story. So the first one is Snapshot. This was like a 4 over 5 for me. I would say the plot twist at the end of the story was really unexpected. I don't think I was expecting that, so that's why I kind of like Snapshot. And it's literally the first book, so I'm kind of going in order of the stories in the book. The next one is Brain Dump. This was 3.5 for me. I did not like the ending. It wasn't so clear that that's what was going to happen. So for me, it kind of ducked points. The next one was I Hate Dragons. This one was 4 stars for me, or 4 over 5, because we have a character who can see speech. Like, I'm speaking and he can actually see it, visualize it. I think that was really cool. But it was short, so I'm like, I didn't like that part. The next one was Dreamer, which is 3. It was not my favorite story. I did not like it. I'm not going to go into details on the story. The next one was Perfect State. This was also a 3 for me. I hated the plot. I hated the characters. I hated the ending. It just didn't work for me. I would say hate is a strong word. I disliked the plot and I disliked the characters. The next one was Probability Approaching Zero. This was 4.5. I think this was my best, which is so funny because this was the shortest story in the whole collection, but it was my best. It perfectly. This was the flash fiction story, by the way, but it perfectly captured humans and how just we just always will always mess stuff up. That doesn't make sense, but it was my best story. The next one was Defending Elysium, which was a 4. This was a prelude or pre-story for the Skyward series. I read it a while back, so it wasn't a new story for me. And I think it was actually pretty good information for if you are reading the Cytonic Skyward series. After that was Firstborn, which is a 4 over 5. Again, this was my top story. I loved it. I don't know what it was, but it really worked for me. It was a really brilliant story, and I absolutely loved the ending. So this was a good one. Firstborn. After Firstborn, we had Mitosis. This is a 3 for me, 3 over 5. I've never really read the Reckoners series, and the short story, the Mitosis story, was not good enough for me to feel compelled to pick that up. So yeah, it was just there. The last one will be Moment Zero, which I think was the newest story in the collection that kind of propelled him to launch this book. Moment Zero was okay. It was also not my fave. It was good. I think I liked it initially. It's a 3.5 for me. I think I kind of got tired of the going back and forth, and I also didn't like the ending. So, but there you have it. I don't know if anyone's read it, but those will be like my really quick analysis of the stories in the books. They were great. I'm not gonna lose sleep over them. And so finally, the last book that I picked up or I read in 2025. Literally, this is the last book I read in 2025. I think I actually went in order of how I read them. So this is the last one, which would be Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. Now, if you know me, I stick really faithful to a couple contemporary authors because sometimes those books are not the best reads, right? I stick to Ali Hazelwood. I'm pretty faithful to her books and she never misses. But on a whim, I picked up, this book. This is the first time I'm reading Abby Jimenez. I'll give you a quick setting of the book. This is a contemporary romance set in modern day Minnesota. And it's like a small town vibe. It's really, it's a small time vibe. And so we're basically following a small time town and a big shot doctor. So basically, Alexis, it's not Abby. Alexis is a doctor. She gets into a little, she gets stuck in a ditch in this deserted highway, whatever. And so this guy Daniel, he helps her. He tows her out, and he gets her going. and then it's a bit too late, or there's like a fog or something, so she has to then go to the bar in this small town. And so she runs into Daniel and basically has a one night stand with the dude, and then she does a Cinderella on him. So it's not anything that's fresh, but what I did like, I have my notes, so please just bear with me. What I did like was I liked the small town vibe. I also liked the fact that therapy was really discussed in the books, and it was really something that the main character, she realized, or she made sure she got therapy, right? Choosing yourself and your happiness over people's expectations, over stuff that's placed on you that maybe really didn't even have anything to do with you, and also your dreams can change, and that's okay. So I really liked, I mean, that's what I got from the book. um for me, when I started the book, I really liked Alexis. I mean, she was okay, but whenever I started the book, like a couple pages, there were a couple of things that I got right away, and I felt like it took Alexis the whole book to get to those realizations. First is her ex was crappy. Her parents were entitled, abusive. Her friends, Jen and Gabby, were really horrible people, and you know, it took her a minute, but I think once she got it, and then she got going. One thing I would have liked was to see how she was before she met Daniel. Was she also like her friends, Jennifer and Gabby? Because why would you be friends with people that you are not alike to? I don't know if that makes sense, but I kind of felt like it was off because she felt really down to earth. But it's like she was really down to earth, but she was surrounded by people that were really snobbish, and like she's a 30-something-year-old woman. I don't really know if it makes sense that it took her that long to realize that I don't like the people around me. They're snobbish, and I'm actually not snobbish. Or she's the other part where you just don't even register that I am actually entitled and privileged, and I don't even know. So I think she was just in a bubble. I don't know. But it was a really good read. This was a 4-star read for me, honestly. It wasn't 5. It wasn't anything like I said, the plot is not new, but I think that, the writing was good, and the feelings that were being communicated were quite genuine and believable. And it was just really, really, it was good writing. There was a kind of like a magical realism. It's like a dash going on in the book. That's basically probably how she even ended up in that town in the first place. I've been to Minnesota before, so it's really, I think she modeled it after this. But if you've been to Minnesota, if you've been to the Mayo Clinic, which is in Rochester in Minnesota, you have like almost like a 2-hour drive from the main city to get to Rochester. So I think that's basically what she modeled this book off of, because Alexis lives in Minnesota, and the small town is like in a Rochester kind of area. And so you would see Alexis driving 4 hours round trip for an appointment. Don't ask me what type of appointment, okay? But that's what exactly was happening. But yeah, this was good. This was really good. If anyone could recommend any more Abby Jimenez books or any contemporary romance books that were really good, again, I have a really high standard. I'm talking about Ali Hazelwood level. So, I don't always venture into romance, but when I do, and I do pick up good ones, I'm very, very happy. And that's why, I still love romance and contemporary romance, but it's just really hard to get, some really good ones. So this was great way to end the year. And I loved it. So that was a lot. Thank you so much for listening to me yap. Let me know the books that you were able to get to in the last months of 2025. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Until then, bye.